Hi, I'm Shoma Chaudhury. Thanks for watching Enquiry. Over the last few weeks, we've had a super disturbing, super distressing spectacle of communal violence across the country. So-called Hindu religious processions wielding swords, taunts, ugly slogans, Muslim retaliation in some localities, riots, arson, and then the state bulldozing homes and shops without due process. Perhaps even more disturbing than the violence on the ground is the apathy, hate speech, doublespeak, and response of those in power. Provocation, reaction, repression. Is that the new formula for India's public life? Are we officially morphing into a revenge state? And what are those mandated to protect the constitution doing about it? To discuss this, I have Arif Mohammad Khan on the show. He's an Islamic scholar, governor of Kerala, and a constitutional authority. I spoke to him a few days ago. Do watch. Arif Saab, thank you very, very much for making time for my show on Enquiry. It's a real privilege to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
So, Arif Saab, I'm talking to you in the backdrop of a lot of violence that has spread across the country over the last few weeks, over Ramnavami and over the Hanuman Jayanti celebrations. So I wanted to ask you, as a constitutional authority, and you've been in public life for many, many decades, are you feeling more disturbed in these last few weeks than you've been in the past about the communal atmosphere in the country?
Whenever there are incidents of the type you are referring to, I feel that they are merely symptoms of a deeper disease. A wise person should not get disturbed by the symptoms, should be more disturbed by the disease. It is basically the kind of situation or kind of mindset which has been created over a long period of time. When we were creating that mindset, when seeds were being sown, if you don't feel disturbed at that time, and you regret only when the plant becomes big and it starts giving fruits, then one can only feel sympathy for you.
So what seeds are you referring to?
Seeds, what we have been doing. No, I will give you an example. 1946, a year before the country's partition happened, Maulana Azad had given an interview to a magazine which was published from Lahore. And the editor was an ardent, if I say devotee of Maulana Azad, then it won't be an exaggeration. There was no way that he could have tried to even substitute the words which Maulana, because this was in Urdu. Every prediction which Maulana Azad made a year before partition, what will be the consequences? Everything came to be true within 30 years as far as Pakistan is concerned, because Pakistan is comparatively a small country. Maulana said in 1946, he said within a very short period of time, because of the incompetent political leadership, Pakistani government will be taken over by the military. He said that neither Mr. Jinnah nor Mr. Liaquat Ali understand the mindset of Bengalis. They do not accept outsiders. And he predicted that, he said that as soon as the freshness of the movement is over, or the first generation leadership goes away, the Eastern Pakistan will not stay with Pakistan. It will be separated. At the same time, he made several predictions about India, which did not come true in 30 years' time. Yes, slowly, history is unfolding itself. The seeds
What were the predictions?
it was the same, that if you will divide the country in the name of religion, then you will only, he said today some places communal rights too happy. But this communalism will become institutionalized.
But Arif Sab, forgive me for butting in here. You know, of
And-
course,
and it is not just partition. Last 30 years, 1986, this country by and large had forgotten, maybe after Bangladesh separated itself, there was sort of sigh of relief, and people were more relaxed. Communalism by and large had taken back seat, but in 1986 we crossed all the limits, and we said in 46 we were saying that because of religion we are different nations. 1986 the same mindset leadership was saying that because of different religion we have a different identity. We are not part of the mainstream India, and anything which is not to their liking, which is not according to their interpretation of Islam, like Supreme Court giving this verdict in favor of Shah Bano, they said that we will tear the country apart. Outside Lok Sabha, do you remember the speeches which were made? They gave a call to break the legs of all members of parliament, particularly Muslim members of parliament who do not agree with them. And the result was, do you know, people talk about lynching. How many attempts to lynch me have been made during that period?
Sure, but Arif Sab, allow me to butt in just for a moment here. Yeah. You know, going back to partition, you know, it's beyond tragic, beyond, you know, horrific, the fault line that happened in the country then. And, you know, we can keep milestoning it after that to, you know, the Shah Bano judgment, to the Ram Mandir movement, to Gujarat riots, to Bombay riots. But Arif Sab, the question I was going to ask you is that one can't be constantly imprisoned by history, because if you look elsewhere in the world, you know, other nations, for instance, Europe, you know, France and Germany could have stayed in a position of enmity for time to come. The point of leadership is to heal fault lines of history, to hark back to history all the time to explain the present.
No. I am not harking back to history. Point I am making that there are people, a certain section of people, not any community, particularly those who are in leadership position, they have imprisoned themselves in that history. They are not ready to give up that mindset. All the British period, the history, you recall the history? Right. This procession will not pass in front of the mosque. This procession will not pass in front of a particular locality where people belonging to a particular religion, they live. Why can't we free ourselves from that thing? Why can't people come? I will give you an example. I was member of parliament in 1980 from Kanpur. On the occasion of the Ram Leela, we had to make some efforts, but we made some efforts and prepared a long list of volunteers, including all communities, but we decided that on the occasion of the Ram Leela, when the procession goes, the volunteers who will at different places, they set up their stalls, providing drinking water, some refreshment. Then we made it a point that they will be Muslim volunteers. All volunteers were there, but they will be Muslim volunteers. They will welcome the procession. They will provide water and refreshments to them. And 3 months later, when the Muharram came, in fact, there was no need to make any effort. At least 10 times more than the stalls which were set up at the time of Ram Leela, 10 times more than that came up on their own to welcome those who were taking part in the Muharram procession. And they were giving them water, they were giving them refreshments, all kind of, why you are imprisoned in that, why that mindset is continuing, that if I live here, then a religious procession belonging to the other community, I will not allow them to pass through my locality.
But Arif Sahab,
This is imprisonment. I am asking for liberation from that imprisonment.
I agree with you entirely on that. The question I'm asking is, like you said, that back in 1980s, when there was effort from both communities to make that sort of atmosphere for peace, and just if I may finish, that there was that atmosphere for peaceful processions, and that has been. There are many years when there isn't any tension, when processions have happened very happily. The question I'm putting to you is that in this context now, is either the government or the leaders of the communities making that effort? Because these were not just religious processions. They were not, in fact, I was just sitting somewhere and I was listening to the Guru Granth Sahib, waiting for a meeting. And I was just thinking how peaceful the sounds of all our religions are, regardless of whether you're part of that faith or not. But when you have a procession wielding swords and guns and shouting Mia Mother Chod hai, and they're bullets, and it's aggressive and volatile, it's a spectacle of domination rather than religious celebration. Do you not think that that is the kind of atmosphere you've been watching?
No, I have not watched it. There was no occasion for me to watch it personally because I am mostly in Kerala, but I have read about it. And maybe I have seen some clips of these things, and they are very unfortunate. I won't even like to speak much about them because that amounts to giving them publicity. I go to that extent, not just now, even earlier, because people, they are, look at the whole scene. Whatever is negative is news, and whatever is positive is propaganda. News, it becomes only when a man bites dog. When a dog bites man, it is not news. So that is the reality of the situation. And some people who want publicity, who want fame, they have fully understood this lesson. Therefore, they will say things which are totally out of box, which are totally go against the reason, against the logic, against everything which is fine in human nature. And they are not ignored. They are given publicity. They become famous. Maybe the fame does not last very long, but for some time they become famous. Therefore, that has become an incentive for these people. And that is why I will, in fact, I should not go into the other thing. So I have not personally, but I personally feel that anything, as it has been said, if one innocent person loses his life, it's a tragedy. If more than that lose their lives, then that is only statistics. But to me, even the loss, if you injure anybody's sensitivities, if you hurt somebody's sentiments, that is even more heinous than taking innocent life.
Arif.
So I totally not only disapprove, I decry all such things. But then we will have to find out. This is our country. We are, because of this country, there may be many holes in this ship. But by condemning them, will it serve the purpose? Or by the purpose will be served more when I put all my soul, all my energy, all my whatever best I can do to fill these holes. These holes cannot be filled by condemning, merely condemnation of these people. The mindset which has been created over a long period of time, you will have to work to change that, the distortion. I won't say even the mindset has, the basic Indian mindset has been distorted in last 100 years.
So, Arif Saab, I'm going to come back to the historical mindset that you're referring to, starting with the colonial project of divide and rule, the insecurity over the period of independence when, in the first war of independence, Hindus and Muslims were together. And then the British played a very targeted project of dividing the communities. And then there was huge insecurity when, by the time independence came around, the elites were really wondering who would have power, how territory would be divided. So it was really insecurity over power, and that continued into partition. So, and then of course the Congress has made many mistakes that you have critiqued. But when you're going on saying that the mindset needs to be fixed, I'm asking you in wearing two hats. One, as a governor, you're a constitutional authority, absolutely sworn to defend the values of the Constitution. And the other, you have had an affiliation in your most recent political history, an affiliation with the BJP. So do you think, as a constitutional authority watching over the government, that this government, which now has power in its hands, is it doing anything to fix the mindset, or is it aggravating that mindset?
I think there should be no doubt that government and even organizations which are important, very important, whose support this government enjoys, they are trying their best to restore that mental balance. They are trying their best to correct the distortions. They are trying their best to, I don't want to discuss the individuals and the organizations, but, and that is not right for me because I'm not trying to defend anybody. But when I, as Indian citizen, keep aside because at least from 2007 till 2019, I was not active politically at all. I was a member of it. The day I was appointed governor, possibly among all the governors, I am the only one who has the political background, yet on the day he was appointed, he was not member of any political party. From 2017, the only thing which has kept me engaged were my reading and writing these academic activities. I never visited even except when triple divorce law was being passed. That is the only day when I visited Central Hall in 12 years.
Sure.
So I was not politically active. Therefore, my purpose here is not to justify anybody. But when somebody important, and I'm not saying anything, when somebody important stands up and says that our DNA is the same, we are not different people. We have to understand that we all belong to this country. This is our, and they, is it not a sincere and genuine effort to bring people closer? Secondly, I have a problem, Shomaji, when you said both the communities. I basically, this is a terminology which was introduced by the Britishers. Now, after the adoption of the Constitution, which is now more than 7 decades old, for the Britishers, the building block was the community. They will decide everything on the basis of the community. Why? Because they denied that we are a nation.
Right.
And they did not want to give this right to any Indian to speak on behalf of all the people of India. They were, you belong to this community, you talk about your community. You belong to this community.
They created separate electorates.
Unfortunately, that terminology and idiom we are still using. Now, the building block of India is citizen of the country. He may belong to any religion, he may be a believer, he may be a disbeliever, he may be an atheist, he may be anybody. The rights of the citizens are not decided on the basis of the religious affiliation of a person. As long as we need to educate our people that now before the independence, it was in your interest to emphasize your community affiliation. Why? Because rights were being given in the name of community. This constitution does not give rights in the name of any community. There are so many confusions and so many misunderstandings.
So, Arif Saf, I'm so sorry I had to butt in, but I completely agree with you, in terms of just where we should be 70 years after. And that's what I was saying. I don't want to be imprisoned by history, that the Constitution is one of the most elevated documents, even perhaps more elevated than America and Britain, that gave staggered right to vote. Our Constitution overnight gave us all equality.
Oh, yes.
Adulthood, without property, language, creed, caste, as you said, the unit of our democracy is the single citizen. So I'm in complete agreement with you. But while that process of democracy is playing itself out, we as the media are meant to be a watchdog on power. You as a constitutional authority and the governor are meant to be a watchdog on power, as are we all living by the Constitution. So in that context, Arif Saab, while you have expressed what the ideal should be, when we are in a situation less than the ideal, is it not your place to speak up? And do you think you are speaking up enough?
In these situations, they call for firefighting. Firefighting, it is not my job to do the firefighting. That is for the administration. That is for the law enforcement.
But that moral voice in a society?
Moral voice I have been raising all along. Moral voice is not what to do immediately. Moral voice is, if you want to find a permanent solution for this problem, then this is the way out. Not merely arrest this person or that person or take administrative action against this building or that. That is for the administration to do. Firefighting is not done by those who are interested with
the Constitution.
Absolutely. That we must, as a matter of principle, that we must leave to our administrative machinery. And we should not interfere in that. And we should leave that to the law and order enforcement agencies.
So Arif Saab, I think, I'm not going to put words into your mouth. As I said, I've watched all your interviews, I read your articles, your interviews. And as I said, in terms of idea, whether your criticism of Muslim orthodoxy or conservatism, the ghettoization of Muslims, you've been urging the community to modernize itself. And as you said, not even see itself in majority-minority terms. So that is the ideal. But similarly, when you in the same breath are saying that this government is doing its best to correct the distortion of history, then I must challenge you.
The distortion
of the distorted mindset.
Yes. Mindset, because why? First, let me explain it to you. The ideal Indian mindset is India is the only civilization which has only culture. I should not talk about civilization because civilization has something to do with physical things, and culture is based on ideas. So Indian culture is the only culture in the world which was not defined either by race, by religious faith, by the language, right from beginning of our civilization. When we talk of diversity and pluralism, this is not something which dawned on us after we had, in the first century, when the Jews came, then Christians came, the religions which originated outside India. We had many religions which originated in India itself, even during the Vedic period. Rig Veda says, Ekam Sad Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. How you approach God is not the substantial thing. The substantial thing is your faith, your belief, your sincerity. That is Indian culture was defined by Atma. Atma means
the individual
that we cannot exclude that we all are interconnected through Atma, and Atma, Paramatma in the form of Atma dwells in each one of us. So for me, you are Paramatma because the Atma which dwells in you is actually the reflection of the Paramatma. How can I step on your shoes or your feet? It is impossible. So basic ideal Sanatan ideal is that treat everybody, Atmam Sarveshu Bhuteshu Bhutatmanam Kripa. See me in every human being, he devale hai. That is, and we do not exclude, this culture does not exclude even animals and plants. How come we started treating our own people as untouchable? How come we started looking at any human being with suspicion? These are the distortions. The Indian thought leaders, say for instance, recent times I am talking, earlier also, but I am talking of the recent times, men like Swami Vivekananda, Raja Ram Mohan Roy and others, they had no compunction, no hesitation in admitting that these are the holes in our ship, but we have to fill them. For that you need not mere words of condemnation. For that you need to do hard work to make people aware of their own legacy, cultural legacy. You have to see God in everybody. You can't treat anybody with disrespect. You can't insult anybody, not even animals and the plants. That is what Sanatan ideal is. So for that you will have to work very hard.
So I completely agree with you there, Arif Saab, and that, my anguish, when I'm questioning you, the anguish is from that position, both as an Indian who absolutely adores the Constitution and its values, and in my individual capacity as a Hindu, because one understands the culture and the religion and its history exactly as you're describing it. But just to come back to your earlier answer, when you were endorsing this, and I'm again, if I was speaking in a Congress regime, I would be questioning the Congress, because the ills of the Congress are equally heinous. There's enough at their door, but they are not in power right now, and we have a BJP government in power. So that is why I'm asking you that when you endorse that this government is doing its very best to fix the distortions in India's mindset, I would then have to challenge you there, Arif Saab, that from a civilizational point of view, in terms of it wanting to be a Hindu government, it doesn't seem to be living up to the Hindu ideals. And by virtue of wanting to fix this mindset, you referred to Mohan Bhagwat's speech saying we are all of the same DNA.
I have not taken any
You didn't
name.
take a name. I'm just letting the audience know because he's the head of the RSS. It's an important voice. But there are so many functionaries of government who are speaking exactly the opposite. We have the CM of Uttar Pradesh, Yogi Adityanath, talking of the Muslims and Hindus in terms of 1820. We've had Anurag Thakur, Parvesh Verma, Somnath Som, we have Tejasvi Surya, we have the Home Minister himself. We've even had the Prime Minister make fairly divisive statements. So when that happens, it makes one wonder why I understand if you don't want to criticize it, you're saying it's not your constitutional position. Why would you endorse it as being a government that's trying to fix distortions?
I am not endorsing anything, but first let me clarify the points which you have made. As far as Mr. Yogi Adityanath is concerned, I think he has more than once clarified that 80-20 comment was not with regard to Hindus and Muslims. But despite that, nobody is ready to accept his version. Everybody wants to impose their understanding that they are insisting no. He's saying that was not my intention. My intention was this. He's saying energy. He's saying several things. But we would say no. We will go by our understanding of what you have done. If somebody is saying, then we should also give some room for that. I have not read everybody's statement. Therefore, even if I have read, I won't like to go into these details. I have already told you, there are many holes in our ship. What more can I say? But can we repair them by condemning them? I have been here. I'm not talking about the government. I'm giving you only an example, a simile. I was in government. I did many stupid things. I did things which will have a very bad lasting impact for next 25, 30, 40 years. And a crisis situation is created because of my actions. And now you come into because of that, I also lost popularity. I lost the government. Somebody else, you came into government. Now you are handling a crisis which is not your creation, which is creation of your predecessor. Will you not give some time to them? Will I not give you some time? Will I not give you some, and particularly taking into consideration the size of this country? I have already told you, every prediction Maulana made about Pakistan came true in 10 years time, 25 years time, 30 years time. The predictions which he made about India, they started becoming reality after many more years later. Why? Because India is a country very big in size.
But, you know, so
we have to find out, we should, instead of going always for instant solutions, we should apply our minds, we should try to find out that the cycle through which India has gone, the adverse circumstances through which India has gone for centuries.
I get it, Arif Saab. You know, I think because I, of course, the audience will be keen to understand beyond, you know, as I said, I'll just recap what you're repeatedly saying, that there's been a distortion through history where the mindset of India there's a kind of fault line running through it, created by the British.
I will give you one example. North. The foreigners came as invaders. They ruled over us. The minds were affected, rather inflected by that. You come to South, say places like Kerala, places like Tamil Nadu, or even the present Andhra Pradesh. I'm not talking of the old Andhra Pradesh. You talk to people, you are surprised to see their attitude. Why? They never experienced foreign rule. Now, foreign rule is part of history, but its impact is still showing.
Yes, but Arif Saab, like I said, you know, at one level you're saying that we must evolve, and I'm speaking for myself here. One can't be imprisoned by history. You know, otherwise, no. I'll just make a couple of points. If we keep harking back to history.
First, let me imprison. Exactly, that is the point. That is my point, that people in northern India, there are still people, I have already said it, who have not been able to free themselves from that prison of history. They are still in, before 47, some of them were saying that we are a different nation because of religion. Now, same mindset is saying we have a different identity because of different religion.
I get it.
Then who is imprisoned by the history? I am imprisoned or they are imprisoned? I am only pleading, please liberate yourself from that mindset. I am citizen of a country where there is total freedom of religion, faith. Nobody is going to interfere. In fact, this country celebrates, cherishes diversity of faith, diversity of languages, diversity of culture, diversity of everything.
So, as I said, Arif Saab, may I just sort of go bit by some of the statements you're making? Complete agreement with you on that. As you said, that, you know, you have been critiquing the Muslim mindset, the sense of being victims, of being minorities, and I'm going to come back to those. You know, you've publicly been known for saying those things, and those things do need to be fixed. As I said, even 70 years after partition, whether it's triple talaq, you know, all these issues, it should be opened up. But I come back to some of the points you're making earlier. You said Hinduism has been open, diverse.
I never used the word Hinduism.
Okay, in the Indian
I have
culture.
said Sanatan.
Sanatan. So the Sanatan culture was diverse, open, and plural at its very inception.
And nobody who proclaims Hindutva can disown the Sanatan values.
Right. But when you say that, Arif Saab, are you not dissembling? Because you know for a fact that, as I'm saying, that I'm critiquing this government from the anguish of being a Hindu or a Sanatani, which is that it is a government whose proclaimed ideology is to turn this into it speaks in a majoritarian tongue. It speaks of turning it into a Hindu Rashtra. It can speak of it as Bharatiya, that everyone must accept its Bharatiya heritage, is a non-mischievous way of putting it. But the moment you say make it a Hindu Rashtra, you know what you're attempting to do. You're attempting to embed that sense of being a minority to the Muslim community. So, you know, even back in the origin of Savarkar and when Hindutva was being articulated, there was this admission that we could as equally call it Bharatiya, which is a geographic space. It's a civilizational space. And I don't think any Muslims would then have any sense of insecurity in accepting that. But when you call it a Hindu Rashtra, it's mischievous, you know.
Who has, historically speaking, who has called the people of India Hindu?
I know, but that's what I'm saying. This is something for you and me to argue with knowledge.
It's a question of argument.
No, because the foreigners called us Hindus.
No.
Yes.
This is a very serious question. Unfortunately, you know, I do not know if you have seen my book. I have tried to, that has been my case since 1986, that what you call Muslim law, 90% it goes against the basic tenets of Quran. Now, the Muslim law divides the whole world into two blocks. And you will be surprised to know that these books, which divide the law books, which divide the whole world into two blocks, Darul Islam and Darul Haram, they are not taught anywhere else in the world today except in the Indian madrasas. It is still continuing in Indian madrasas. I ask you, two-nation theory. In India, admittedly, there were more than two religions. Admittedly, though, why two-nation theory? Why this name was used? It was used because from law viewpoint, the world is divided into two blocks. One is Darul Islam, where Muslims live, or the identity of the Muslim, and all others are covered under one identity. And the problem before the Muslim rulers in India was, I'm not talking about everybody, because there were many very sane, very logical rulers also. But there were others who were guided by the Muslim law. And I make a distinction between Islam and Muslim law. To me, Quran is Islam. Muslim law is not. Muslim law has been written by human beings. So those who were being guided by these clerics, now the question before them was that what rights the other people, people other than Muslims should enjoy. And they were not ready. They used a blanket term for them. Blanket term, either Zimmi or Hindu, for the Indians, as far as Indians are concerned. Basically, I'm again pleading, and not pleading with you. I wrote this article about 12, 15 years back. First, I sent a letter to Deoband. I requested them that I'm not even asking you to remove these books from your syllabus. But if you insist on teaching them, teach them as history of Muslim law. Don't teach them as Muslim law. Because when you say Muslim law, you tell the student that this is the law which has been given by God. When he comes to the class, he picks up the book, he kisses it, he touches his eyes with it, and if you read the book is full of
regressive ideas.
Not just highly oppressive, supremacist, nothing but discrimination among people on the basis of their faith. And that still continues in Indian madrasas. And you are saying that I'm pleading that please free yourselves from this prison of history. This law, I had written in that letter, that this law is not applicable today even in any Muslim country.
So Arif Sahab, the same passion.
But we are teaching our children.
No, I'm glad
And this government does not, no government of India is ready to interfere there. And then they say that only 4% or 3% children come there. But these products, they have the control of every mosque in India. They are the people who have a platform to address the local Muslims every Friday and in fact even other days.
So Arif Sahab, 2-3 things here. One, you've made this very passionate and I think very important point about separating the Quran from the regressiveness, oppressiveness, supremacist
Of the laws.
Of the laws. So I think similarly, perhaps being a Hindu, today a lot of Hindus are wanting to separate the beauty and the plurality and the immenseness of the Hindu, or as you said, one doesn't know what term to use, but let's say the Sanatan Dharm, from the political project of Hindutva. One is feeling the same anxiety about what is being done in the name of Hinduism as you are feeling of what's being done in the name of Islam, And I come back now, of course, I'm not speaking to you as an Islamic scholar. I am speaking to you at the moment as the governor of Kerala and a custodian of the constitution. That with the same passion as you are pleading for the Muslim community to free itself from a historic mindset, a sense of victimhood, a sense of self-confident citizenship in the country, it should embrace that and free itself from its ulema and the Maulvis. With that same confidence, can you not denounce what is being done wrongly in the name of the Sanatan Dharm or the Hindutva project?
Okay. Shall I reply? If denouncement helps, if I come
Okay,
to...
plead for the correct thing. You've already made this point that denouncing doesn't help, condemning doesn't help. Will you not make a plea
then I will try to explain the situation with the help of a real story. A friend of mine, about a few months back, because you are saying that I'm pleading with passion to separate as far as the Muslims are. No, recently I have not been doing this. This is, I have been doing this since 1986, but recent years, particularly last 5, 7, 8 years, I am speaking more on Sanatan values. But in fact, I would say now it is more than 10 years when I am speaking more on Sanatan values. And I can say with all humility and a sense of satisfaction that tremendous response I did much before I became governor. University, particularly after publication of my book, universities inviting me and speaking to various, and many, I have already told you I was not member of any political party, still, even the organizations like RSS and others inviting me to speak to their audience. So this is the background, and now I am going to give you the story. A close friend of mine in Delhi, he came to see me here. He came to know that he came to see me here. I'm not going to name the person, but this person, he talked about a person who is a very prominent film personality based in Mumbai. He came to me and said, and very vocal critic of BJP and RSS, rather full of, I should not use the word hate, but very strong in his feelings against RSS and BJP. He comes here and he tells me that he was full of praise for your speeches, and he says, now I'm hearing one after the other, one after all YouTube speeches, and I'm wondering how BJP allows Arif Mohammad Khan to make these speeches. I was very happy when this friend of mine, and he's very keen to meet you and talk to you. So now, today he's not here. If I had known, then he would have come here. So then he used his own phone. I talked to him and I jokingly said, but at least there is one thing common between you and BJP, RSS. He said, what is that? I said, they also like my speeches, same speeches.
No, I
They
guess
are full of, no, not just that. In the third month of my appointment as governor, because I was receiving all these invitations, first month, the Rashtrapati Bhavan allowed me in the name that these are my old commitments. Governor's protocol does not allow them to stay for more than 5 days outside their state. And I'm receiving all these invitations. I'm going all over the country. Then when I received this invitation, third or fourth month, then I informed some powerful people in Delhi. I said, I won't be able to go because I get this reminder from the Rashtrapati Bhavan. And then Rashtrapati Bhavan exempted me. The people who are close to power or are in power are so happy with these speeches, which are also liked by the progressive people who are critical of BJP.
I get it, Arif Saab. Like you said, you are...
No, here the point is different. Point is that when Arif Mohammad Khan says these things, you are ready to hear. But when Narendra Modi ji says these things, when RSS people say these things, then because of the hatred which lurks, which prejudices our mind, we are not ready to hear what they are saying.
Okay, so that's a very important point you've made, that you are trying to articulate, put on the foreground what Sanatan values are, so that society remembers it, uses it, as a kind of torchlight for who we should be as people. I get that. When the RSS and the BJP say these things, Arif Saab, the reaction is different because for 2 points. One is that there has been and continues to be a program of domination. And alongside, one feels that it's two-tongued because there's also a program of hatred. You did not want me to name people, but let's say, like we said, a lot of ministers, when you say that they are rapists and they're murderers, we must kill them or die, we must turn this into a Hindu nation, when you're saying, Goli maro salo ko, and that there's no repercussions for the people who are saying this. You stepped down from the Rajiv Gandhi government. You stepped down as a minister when the government betrayed its values and overturned the Shah Banu judgment. You stood by your values. Today, are you telling me that nothing that is happening in public life goes against your grain, goes against your constitutional values, or goes against Sanatani values?
The problem is that there are too many questions in your one
No,
question.
I'm making...
So if you keep it specific, then it will become
okay.
much easier.
So
much easier for me.
I'll make 2 points. You said that when you speak of Sanatani values, both liberals, progressives, and the BJP and the Muslims like it. But when the Prime Minister or the BJP says these, or the RSS speaks of Sanatani values, they are rejected because there's hatred for them. So my question to you is, be honest, Arif Saab, why is there a sense of hypocrisy when they speak of Sanatani values? Is it not because they are doing things which go against Sanatani values?
Even if you are fighting for a noble cause, if you allow yourself to be overwhelmed by hatred, then you will lose it. It is such a negative force. And to say that we don't want to hear them because of this thing. No. You should be ready to hear even your worst opponent.
Of course, but also call out what is wrong.
Just call out what is wrong. You are not in a position to call out what is wrong because the same wrongs you have committed repeatedly and you are continuing to do that. You are not in a position to say, call out the wrong. Acha, secondly, you asked me a question that I resigned and today I do not see anything wrong. What is happening, even if I accept your version, what is happening? I had predicted this in 1986, at least in 3 press conferences I have said, and I will use the same words because I had used this first time in a meeting with the Urdu press. I said, आपने जिस तरह हुकूमत, आपने जो माहौल पैदा किया है मुल्क में शाबानों को बदलवाने के लिए, whatever person law board has done, मैंने कहा कि अब इस मुल्क में ये बिल्कुल इसको पक्का जान ली, मेरे दिमाग में जो इससे अंदेशे पैदा हुए हैं, जो नफरत पैदा हुई है, और मैंने कहा कि खुदा करे, मैंने कहा शायद इतनी नफरत पार्टीशन के बाद भी नहीं हुई थी, और खुदा करे मेरे दिल में जितने अंदेशे हैं वो सब गलत साबित हो। इफ यू ऑलरेडी नो अबाउट ए सिचुएशन that this is what is going to happen after 10 years or 15 years, will you be shocked?
No, I'm asking. No, I'm not talking about being shocked.
Will you be shocked?
I won't be shocked. I'll still push back on it.
So you will only try to find out how to correct this situation. My answer is mere condemnation is not going to help. It is only if I am doing what I consider is the best. To the same people I am giving to the message that if you do anything which is born out of spite, which is born out of hate, which is born out of the feeling of otherness, this is not your heritage. This is not what your own faith system tells you to do. I am trying to do the other way. I am not trying to, and I am convinced that the history of blunders is so insidious that condemnation in any case is not. People laugh at those who try to give moral lessons because they are those who have committed every crime.
I agree with you. Like I said, but that's exactly what I'm trying to escape, because Arif Saab, even, so let me say the positive things that you're doing. You're saying mere condemnation is not enough. I'm trying to remind the Hindu society about its own Sanatan values.
Not Hindu society. When I am speaking, I am also giving to a message to the, if you insist on using this term Hindu, then I am giving a message to the non-Hindu citizens of this country that there is no need to fear, because actually problem with us human beings is that when I try to assess you and judge you, I use my own standards. Because others have this standard that those who have a different faith from us, they will be treated as inferiors. In Sanatan system, no such system exists. No,
that's beautiful. I agree with you, Arif Saab. That is my disappointment.
So if even if it is, first of all, it is not. But if what you are saying is proved right, under which provision of the Sanatan tradition the non-Hindus will be treated or discriminated against? Tell me that.
No, I am not making that point at all. I am saying to you.
So why to fear?
No, 1 minute.
Why to fear?
No, why to fear? Because there is an instrument of politics, is the government. So Arif Saab, 1 second, because I think we are mixing things up.
No, don't mix. I will tell you another thing. People who are in this government, they have been talking of Hindutva, Hindu Rashtra for last so many years. Now, last 5 years or 7 years, the welfare schemes which have been implemented, whether it is LPG, whether it is house for the poor, has there been any cases of discrimination?
I agree. That's what I personally have not reported on it, but I accept that the welfare scheme is going to everyone. So hold on, Arif Saab. That's exactly my point. That this government could have been a force of good.
It is a force of good.
You're saying that so emphatically, which is why one is questioning you, because then exactly that if they are giving all the welfare programs non-discriminately, but human beings exist. 1 minute, human beings exist at several levels. One is the functional of getting your roti and your kapda and your makan. There's also the realm of ideas, of culture and of language, of faith, of food, of dress, of culture. Are you absolutely blind to the fact? I agree with you that if this government was living by Sanatan values, there would be actual Ram Rajya. Whereas today, the name of Ram is associated with boys on motorbikes wielding swords, saying that they will kill and invade. No, we can dismiss them. But this is not just fringe elements.
If you allow me, I will put it differently. As a Muslim, if I discriminate against you, I will be committing a crime. This is my understanding and my belief. I will be committing a crime against the word of God, which is the scripture, that is the Quran. But if I discriminate against you, you are not a Muslim. And I'm saying that as a Muslim, if I do discriminate against you, I have the upper hand. I'm ruling over the particular area, and I discriminate against you, then I have every justification as far as the Muslim law is concerned.
I get that, Arif Saab. You have made that point very, very emphatically and passionately. And I think there's, sadly, as you said, not enough space for Muslims themselves to express what doubt, sense of progressiveness they want, how to claim modernity. These are fights that the Muslim community has to fight for itself. I'm for the moment, because as I said, if there was another government in place, I would be critiquing or questioning that government. I have no doctrine agenda against this government.
Right.
And as I said, I'm passionate about the Sanatan values. It has beauty, it has modernity embedded in it. As you said, the individual Atman is the heart of the Sanatan Dharm.
That is the only basis.
But what I am not understanding is why you would not remind those who are in power that both to the constitution and to Sanatan Dharm, they owe a language, a framework and a vocabulary that they are not living out in public life. And I would then start giving you all the examples where they are not, where from the Prime Minister, they hark back to Aurangzeb and equate it to modern Muslims. Why? When you're speaking in electoral terms, you start speaking of sultans and miyas. Why? Is the Indian Muslim, modern Muslim, 200 million people living very peacefully, going about their business. What do they have to do with the Mughal rulers and the Sultanate of the past? I, as a Brahmin, do I have control over what my Brahmin forefathers did? Which Shudra they hit or didn't hit, or who they were? I mean, I'm merely asking you as an intellectual, why would you, when you are reinforcing what is good about Sanatan values, why will you not tell them that they're letting it down?
Shall I? And if you, as I requested you, if you keep these.
Of course. It's because you're making statements that are.
Many questions then to create conflict. I'm not responsible for the actions. You are not responsible for the actions of your forebears. I'm not. Nobody is. But we are responsible for the memories which our forebears have created. And particularly when we take pride in those memories. If you really want to give the message that you have nothing to do with it, then at least don't try to show your admiration for those memories. Unfortunately, that is not the scene at the moment. We are still at a stage where when a Sir Sayyid says he criticizes Aurangzeb and Mahmud Ghaznavi, then he is attacked.
That he is?
He is attacked by the clergy. Here, in recent times, in one TV program about 5-6 years back, I had criticized Aurangzeb, and a cleric from Lucknow, he protested so strongly. So if you continue to admire these figures, if you want to, then these memories will be kept alive. I am not responsible for their actions, but I am responsible for the memories. You can't do away with that.
Fair enough.
Yes.
But okay, that's a good point. So similarly now, when it's in our hands, in the hands of those who are in power, to create better memories than what previous governments, Congress, all the mistakes of the past, why would it not create a better footprint rather than only playing a divisive role?
Why you should have this idea? You are saying that why I won't remind them about all
this divisive agenda.
First of all, you need to remind somebody when that person is not aware of it. Why do you have this idea that they are not aware of these maladies?
Of these maladies?
Yes, I'm
because
saying.
they're participating in those
they are
maladies.
not. This is exactly my point. The problem is that howsoever noble something can be, you can pursue it only to the extent where you do not lose public support. You have to be the job of the leadership is not merely to manage the affairs, but also to build attitudes which take long time. Mere administrative action may create backlash. And when you are speaking repeatedly, saying the same thing, these actions are not in accordance with our own ethos, with our own traditions. You take administrative action, they will be in India. We have seen in many cases that such people become hero.
This is like, it's almost like it's like rolling a ball up the hill and watching it roll down.
So-
because by you making, I'm in agreement with so much of what you're saying, but I think in some places you are dissembling.
I am not dissembling. I am not. You are in a state of shock. I am not. Because I had seen all these things coming in 1986. And I repeatedly warned the country.
No, I'm not in a state of shock. I believe that democracy is a dialogic process and you keep evolving, pushing back on what is wrong, lifting up what is right. And perhaps one is disappointed that at this stage there are less people pushing back.
I can tell you that I am not a perfect person, and not that everything I do is right, but my intentions are absolutely the same as you are saying. There is something wrong. There are several ways in which you can try to correct it. I have chosen the path which to my mind is the best, and that is to remind our people of their own ethos, their own heritage, don't try to ape others. Let our system remain the value system which we have inherited from ancient India, because this is the only continuous civilization in the world among the ancient civilizations. So we have a duty. I remind them repeatedly that we have a duty. And I also remind, in fact, in many of his speeches I said that for a human being, this body of ours needs to be refreshed after every 12 hours or 24 hours. Likewise, our heritage also, we need to remind ourselves and again that these are our values. And these values may be 1,000 years back. In a world where force was the arbiter, we might have, these values may not have been of great use to us, because they appealed to the intellect, they appealed to the reason, they appealed to the logic. And that was the world where everything was being decided by force and compulsion. So we might have suffered on account of our own. But now is the time. Now is our time. Now we are living in information age. We are going to move into knowledge age. So this is the time when Indian tradition, all over the world, there was nowhere till about 150 years back, the kind of pluralism which we are seeing, that was not there anywhere. So they are only, I won't say imitate, they are following, or they are doing what India had taught the world 5,000 years back, or maybe before that. So this is our time now. And we can, but we will have to ensure that we ourselves do not deviate from those values. I repeatedly say it, and use very strong words. And I assure you that people in Delhi, people other places, those who matter, those who are very powerful, they are full of admiration for these speeches of mine. They do not find any fault with it. When I say that Indian tradition is of diversity, of pluralism, of universal acceptance, we are the only culture which had a universal vision, where we viewed a person not in terms of the variable and alienable characteristics like caste, creed, community, but the invariable, inalienable characteristic, and that is Atma. Swami Vivekananda said that my mission can be explained in very simple words. That is to teach unto I said, I often say, he never said, I want to teach unto Indians. He said, I want to teach unto mankind their divinity and its manifestation in all movements of life. So these things, you can't, by using language which is full of condemnation, hatred against this, against that, these things, you have to, there are so many things, I have already told you, there are so many holes in my ship. But I have to fill these holes. These holes can't be filled by using the language of condemnation. They can be used by, they can be filled by persuading people, making them, persuade them to own their own heritage, believe in their own values.
That's a good point, and I am in so much agreement with that I'll leave it at that. We're running out of time. I'm just going to bring up one or two other very quick points. One is that, I'm sorry to bring you down to the immediate again, but there's again a sense of dread and anxiety now in the nation state and our conception of the nation state, that what is the nature of power? Should the government be bulldozing the houses of protesters? Is that not going against the very principles of justice, due diligence, due process, and of should we be a vengeful state or a just state?
Well, you have every right to your opinion. I, at the moment, do not have right to give expression to that opinion. And neither you nor I have right to sit in judgment. We have our own institutions. If anybody is aggrieved because of any, I am not fully familiar with the details, but if anybody is aggrieved, we have seen repeatedly in the past that very high, even actions of the government have been undone by the courts. So we should have trust in our judiciary. Sometimes in extraordinary situations, not that that is a justification, certainly not. Nobody has a right to violate the law, to digress from the law. But I am nobody to sit in judgment.
Of course,
this is for
Arif
people
Sahab,
to go to the court and fight and let the court.
I'm not. That's why I haven't told you about the specific whose house was, who's not. I'm asking about the principles of a state. That should there be a state that can bulldoze your property, because suppose as a father, your son has pelted a stone. Can your property be raised? There, like you said, there's a rule of law which penalizes the child for throwing a stone. So do you not see this to be?
The basic thing is that rule of law must be respected at every cost. And if there is any violation, whether it is by a private citizen or it is by the government, we can have opinions. You have every right to have the opinion. I also have a right to opinion, but I don't have at the moment right to give expression to that opinion. But judgment can be given only by the institutions.
I'll interpret that as a tacit criticism of the situation.
No, I'm in no position to do any criticism of anybody.
Okay, one last. I was really asking about the principles, and it's a very interesting point I was trying to raise, which is that a government and a parliament may enact a law and it still not be serving the principles of natural justice. So even if there is a law, that law could be bad in natural justice.
So many times, so many laws have been struck down by our courts. The courts are there to ensure that the basic structure of the constitution is never compromised.
Okay. So the last one is about the issue of hate speech. What is your understanding? Now again, I'm asking you at the level of ideas, because if I ask you specifics, we've argued that for an hour, that the DGP of Uttar Pradesh, the former DGP of Uttar Pradesh, Vikram Singh, he said that in all his years of policing, he has seen that there's a threshold of rhetoric that ups the volume of communal tensions. And if that rhetoric is not there, he said everything is very manageable. So we come to this atmosphere of hate speech that there has been consistently now for many months and over years, intensification of this idea of Hindus and Muslims, which what you are trying to fight against it, but it's there. So when you have hate speech like the one that I said, or where you say goli maro salo ko, or you say boli se nahi to goli se manayenge, or innumerable, they are rapists, kill them if they come to if what is the exact things they said, that they will enter your house and rape your daughters. That's the kind of atmosphere that is going on. What do you think? Should that be deemed as freedom of speech, or is that actionable hate speech?
Certainly that cannot be deemed as freedom of speech, but that should not be elevated to the status of a subject worth discussion.
Yeah, Arif Sahab, it's having outcomes.
Just a moment, please. We will have to, if we want to live a happy and peaceful life, then we will have to learn to ignore stupid things. You can't take into consideration everything which everybody is saying. Why? Unless I learn to, don't make stupid people famous by reacting to them. And we have so many examples in history. These people, they vie for attention. They will die their own death if you refuse to give them attention and pay them attention. And this is happening. You have taken note of these recent things.
No, that's only because if we go, of course, in the past,
that
of course.
has been going on since long time.
But when those were in power, we critiqued those. When these are in power, we critique them.
Not even in power, even outside power.
Yes, but I'm saying,
where I will call everybody, person is going to be condemned to hell, all kind of things. These things, my religion, I'm not talking about any particular community. My ways are right and everybody else is wrong. There have been people like this. Such people must be ignored. Why they should be given? When you take somebody's comments seriously and you give your reaction to that, you are giving sort of respectability to them.
no, I totally agree with you.
I won't like to.
I agree with you. Arif Sahab, I'll just ask you for one
Don't
final.
make stupid people famous by commenting on them. There is not only one method of showing disapproval. Based on what I know, I can say without any fear of being contradicted that disapprovals have been shown, have been conveyed. I don't think I should say shown, have been conveyed. And sometimes, if your child is behaving in a crazy way, then sometimes it is not the same tactics which you will approve every time. Same methodology. You will.
I know, Arif Sahab, but when you internally convey disapproval to your child, but you arrest an Omar Khalid who is also your child, then what we are looking at is a discriminatory state, and that is creating anguish.
I don't want to, I never want to discuss individuals, but
Or I'm just using him as a
I don't
example
want to
of
discuss
then
individuals.
that disapproval should be
Individuals,
similar, that convey disapproval to your other children also. Why should some children get a sweet and a disapproval and some children get jail and disapproval? You know?
You have a point there, but you also see at the I'm not saying in the context of the person you have mentioned.
Yeah, I'm just using him as an example.
But even the police office, the police thanas, why do they maintain a register of people and the crimes which they have committed in the past? And if a new crime is committed, it is not only this particular incident which helps them to take the decision in respect of this person, but the old record also is taken into consideration in taking decision. But I do not wish to discuss these individuals.
Right. Thank you very much, Arif Saab. You've said many important things, and for those that you haven't said, I'll hope to speak to you again at another time.
Most welcome.
Thank you very much.